In war, accurate information is essential. I used the term fighting in connection with the sealing of the Lord's own, simply because that is what you are going to have to do if you intend to escape from this loony bin we call Mother Earth, with your soul intact. Just sayin'. Only trouble is, if you don't know how to recognize the enemy you face, or how to use the weapons the Lord has provided, I seriously doubt your soul is going to leave this world alive. Just sayin'. The fools who think they can waltz right into heaven without a fight need to fill that vacant space between their ears with something other than the legalistic nonsense that Satan has long since passed off as Christianity. The lies those nitwits so avidly want to believe ain't true. Never have been. Never will be. But they will realize the truth in what I am telling you, much too late for it to do them any good. And if you don't pay close attention to what I tell you here, you are going to be one of them. Just sayin'. In the book of Ephesians, Paul explains the things you need to know about the military equipment the Lord has provided for those who intend to fight the good fight and return home alive. But before I show you what Paul said, I must first tell you this. It is not my responsibility to ensure you use the weapons the Lord has provided. My only responsibility is to show you what they are, and how to use them. The rest is up to you. So, now that I have laid out my responsibility, and yours, let's get started. This is what Paul says. Ephesians chapter 6, verses 10 through 17, my standardized translation. From now on, be empowered by His majesty, and by the power of His might. Slip on all of the living God's armor, so that you can stand against the tactics of the false accuser, because the struggle we have is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the world rulers of this nether darkness, against the spiritual aspects of the evil intention in the beings in heaven. For this reason take up all of the living God's armor, so that you can withstand them on the day that is nasty, and stand after bringing everything about. Stand therefore, after girding yourself about your loins with truth, and after slipping on the breastplate of the declaration of not guilty, and after binding sandals on your feet, by a preparation of the word of the gospel of His peace, at all times, taking up the full body shield of the belief, with which you will be able to extinguish all the burning arrows of the one who is nasty. Also, accept the helmet of your salvation, and the sword of the Spirit, which is any comment made by God. That passage will make a whole lot more sense to you, if you keep in mind the fact that the Lord, His Majesty, is the living Word of God, that is found in the teaching of Moses. That is what John is talking about in this passage. John chapter 1, verses 1 through 14, my standardized translation. In the beginning, the Word was, and the Word was with the living God, and the Word was God. This individual was in the beginning, with the living God. Everything has come into being through Him, and not even one thing that has come into being apart from Him. Life was in Him, and the life was the light of men. And the light is appearing in the darkness, and the darkness has not grasped it. A man who had been sent from God came. His name was John. This individual came for a testimony, so that he could provide testimony about the light, so that everyone may believe the word of the gospel, because of him. That individual was not the light, but was, so that he could provide testimony about the light. The light was the real light, the one who provides light for every man who comes into the world. He was in the world, and the world came into being through Him, and the world did not know Him. He came to His own, and His own did not take Him to themselves. But as many as accepted Him, to them, To those who believe in his name, he gave authority to become God's children. Those who were not engendered by blood, nor by the will of flesh, nor by the will of man, but by the will of God. And the Word became flesh, and he camped out among us, and we got a good look at his glory, like the glory of an only engendered Son from a Father, a glory completely full of a favor and the truth. I will assume for the moment that you know. The light is a parabolic image of the truth that God has revealed in the Hebrew Scriptures. And I will also assume that you know Paul has in mind the teaching, when he refers to his majesty, and the power of his might, in Ephesians chapter 6 verse 10. If you don't, you may as well stop reading right here, and go read Mother Goose for all the good this article will do you. Or you could go back and read, or reread, the things I have written over the past 26 years. Only then will you be equipped to stand your ground, in the face of the idiot, who is out to destroy your soul. Paul identifies two distinct entities in the passage above. He first provides a list of the enemies that you are going to face as a true believer. Then he gives a list of the various articles of military equipment that you can use to defeat them. But those two lists won't do you any good, if you don't know what the items on the lists actually are. So I am going to provide you an explanation. Believe it if you care to, disbelieve it if you dare to. Makes no difference to me one way or the other. I'm just doing what God called me to do. The first list gives the enemies we are going to encounter in our walk with the Lord. Here it is. 1. The false accuser, Satan. 2. The rulers. 3. The authorities. 4. The world rulers of this nether darkness. 5. The evil intention in the beings in heaven. Just a wee bit of logic on your part should tell you Paul is referring to spiritual beings that reside in the dimension we call heaven, yet somehow manage to control what goes on here on earth. What he calls this nether darkness. I am going to explain the nature of those spiritual beings and how they operate, so that you can understand how they are very easily able to control folks like you and me. The second list that Paul provides gives the weapons we can use against the enemies we face. 1. The girdle of the truth. 2. The breastplate of a declaration of not guilty. 3. The sandals of the word of the gospel. 4. The full body shield of belief. 5. The helmet and sword of any comment made by God. In mentioning military equipment, Paul is merely playing with the parabolic imagery found in various things the prophets wrote, about the army of Gentiles who are going to triumphantly return home, to the heavenly Jerusalem, marching under the ensign of the Lord, at the end of the age. So I will set all that parabolic imagery aside and show you the 5 things Paul mentions, that you really need to remember. 1. The truth. 2. A declaration of not guilty. 3. The word of the gospel. 4. Belief. 5. Any comment made by God. Now I am going to arrange those 5 things into 2 statements, to show you how all 5 are related. Maybe then, you will understand a bit more about how God expects you to overcome the enemies true believers face on a daily basis in this hellhole, in which we live. Here 'tis. 1. The truth is any comment made by God. 2. Belief in the truth of the word of the gospel results in a declaration of not guilty. My point is, Paul is not talking about 5 totally unrelated things. He is talking about just one thing. Belief in the truth that God has revealed in the Scriptures. Therefore, if you have access to that truth, all you have to do to defeat the enemy is to use it. But if you don't know how to recognize the enemy when you encounter him, access to the truth God has revealed is not going to do you much good at all. So I am first going to explain the truth you need to know and believe. Then I am going to explain who the enemy is, and how you can recognize him. Then I am going to explain how you can use the truth you understand to triumph over the enemy. I will begin by explaining how Paul viewed the 5 things he mentioned.